It was even better because my MBA program was an international kind of business program. So I had just come from China. So I got to go back twice. Yeah, where I got to see the business side of it, understand mainland China, understand the, relationship between Hong Kong and China. And then I got to go back and do lacrosse. It was amazing. Yeah.
And how was lacrosse received, and what age groups were you working with there?
It's called their representative team. So it's like the Hong Kong national team, but it's not called the national team. I cannot say that. It's called the representative team. And, they just had coaches. They have guest coaches come out periodically and kind of, demo some things, teach the girls some new concepts, and so receptive, so just really latched on to everything we said and wanted to try new things and kind of showed us Hong Kong and, what that's all about. It was a great experience.
And what are those young women trying to get out of lacrosse? Because that certainly isn't a mainstay for China or Asia in particular.
I mean, I still think the same things that the young women here can get out of it. It's a great gateway to a university. If you are promising and have ability, now that we have the pro league, it'd be really great to try to get, representation from the international community, which is something we're kind of working on. So, I'm the general manager of the Baltimore League here. So, we're really interested in possibly exploring that and, growing the game in many different ways.
Yeah, and I've had the chance to see some of the pro games. I think maybe it was at Hopkins. And I've got 4 daughters, so my kid number 3, we don't go by names anymore. We just number them.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, but and her head would explode if I said her name. But it's just great because they're seeing women on an equal status as far as the game's being recognized for the hard work and the skill. It certainly isn't even, but it's definitely a really good start. And here in the Mid-Atlantic, it carries a little extra weight because lacrosse is a big deal around here. What have you seen in terms of diversity, whether it's by gender, age, anything like that, as far as where people are being allowed to try different sports? What have you seen in your travels in these different communities?
Lacrosse is growing. I think that it could be growing faster. I think, I can't, if I knew the answer to why it's not growing, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who are like, oh my gosh, it's the fastest growing game, in the country, or the, statistics like that. But I think we could be doing a better job, to be quite honest, of, really allowing it to be a sport, especially for young women. It really doesn't require a lot. Some goggles, a mouth guard, and a stick, and a ball. It's not like ice hockey or men's lacrosse where you need a $400 helmet. So I just think that there's so much opportunity in terms of D3 schools now, are popping up everywhere with lacrosse. There literally is a school for every single girl of college age that wanted to play. I honestly believe that. And it's just about exposing them to the sport and letting them know about these opportunities and, passing that along. And I don't think it's getting passed along, which I wish it would.
And do you have any, suspicions as to why it's not being passed along as quickly as you'd like?
No, I need the answer to that. I'm really trying my best to do something about it, especially now that I live in the Baltimore area. I feel like this is everybody talks about it being a hotbed, or, being here allows me to have a platform that people kind of appreciate lacrosse, and I can kind of go from there. Yeah.
Well, do you think there's something that if you're not playing at a high level, that it's not worth playing? beyond high school? Any misconceptions about that? Like even club, which is some will call it the JV level.
Right.
Do you think any of those things that it's becoming tainted with, well, if you're not going to get the accolades and if you're not going to be able to make the money off it, because, Title IX doesn't make money. Title IX gives you an opportunity to be a student athlete. Do you think there's any of those things that just, for me, I played about the lowest club level you could in Illinois. Fortunately, I was taught by a Baltimore guy that went to Gilman. And he taught us the right way, but we thought it was amazing that we had the chance to be on a field that nobody knew where we were, just to be able to play outside of high school, and it was important to us. And that's,
it's such a great sport. If you talk to young kids, it's a sport that you can fall in love with and not even know why. Like, man, if you talk to kids that really love lacrosse, I don't even think they can explain it. It's a team sport. It has individual elements. It requires skill, but you can kind of like play right away at the same time. It's physical. I mean, that's what I like about the sport, especially for young women, that, it's a sport where we can touch each other and hit and be physical and strong and, fast and big, where maybe other sports don't allow you. Tennis, you can't hit the other girl with your stick. You can't touch her. In basketball, it's a pretty physical sport, but this is like basketball with a stick and outside. So, to me, that's why I fell in love with it. It's like, this is as close to basketball you can get. And, I can kind of be free and run outside and have more friends to play with. It's not just 5 girls. It's like 12. So, I just think people fall in love with it. It's easy to fall in love with.
Now, I had a guest on probably a month ago, Molly Grisham. She's has been a collegiate soccer coach, and we talked about one of her articles, and it was about girls needing to be gentle when they play. And she talks about how, I think it was in a lacrosse setting, that a referee had come over and said to the coaches, your girls need to be more gentle out there. And your thoughts on when someone's trying to tell, again, in particular, male officials or coaches seem to think that there's more etiquette and politeness that need to be involved with the women's game.
I think the game needs to be safe. Especially at younger levels, it's important that coaches teach fundamentals and good body control, but I enjoy it when girls are allowed to be physical and are allowed to push and, run off each other and pick and, things like that. That's why I love the sport. If they took that away, I wouldn't like it at all. It would be a horrible sport. So, and I don't think many women's lacrosse players at the highest levels would enjoy it either. The best games are games where refs don't exist.
I couldn't agree more. And I wonder if sometimes it's maybe that's a little too liberating to be able to be playing contact, because then I see the other issue, which is it being, again, guys are used to the guy side of the game, which is, well, just give them helmets and let them hit harder. And I said, well, they can do that. I mean, in my college club, there wasn't a women's game. We had women from the East Coast that would put on helmet and pads, and they'd play with us, 20 years old. But I learned later with it's a totally different game. It's not.
Oh, nothing game. Is. Yes. Like, I'm basically a professional women's lacrosse coach. I could not translate to even like fresh, soft men's. Like, I don't know the rules. The strategy is totally different. Because of the pocket, it structures the entire game differently. You can shoot from much further away. It's like basketball with only 3-pointers, where we're like laying the ball up. So your strategy is totally different.
And I think that's where if more parents can understand the women's game, I think they can relate to their daughters better. And I think that might be one of the things, because as I'm coaching now at a JV level, I get new goalies saying, well, why can't I should be stopping the ball, all of them. And I said, you're kidding, right? And
Right.
she's never played goalie. She was upset that she didn't stop them all. I know we're getting a little technical here, but she told me where it came from. A boy in her neighborhood on the boys' high school team said she stinks because she didn't stop that many, and so forth. And I said,
Oh, right.
did you ever notice how close they are when they shoot? She goes, yeah, they're like 4 feet away.
Yeah.
I said, yes, that's the women's game. I go, look at the boys. I go, and people can get in the way. They knock each other down. It's a great game. I love playing it, but it is, I won't say it's different, and I will say you could switch probably from the women's game to the men's game much easier than you could switch from the men's to the women's because of the restraint, yet there's contact and the speed.
Oh, I definitely think men would surprisingly struggle. They would wonder why they're struggling, but they would struggle. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I have really found a lot of satisfaction in, just working with these girls. Again, some are club level, some are advanced rec, some, just want to try and play in high school. And they don't even really think past it, regardless of what level of athlete they are. But to just show them that, hey, there's nothing different in terms of the athlete that you are between the boys and you. And I tell them, I go, well, I'll tell you some secrets. I go, here are the things that are much harder in the women's game, and here are the things that are pretty easy in the guys' game. And they said, well, but they get hurt. And I said, well, yeah, it's easy to get bruises. That's kind of fun if you're a guy, but that's not necessarily where the skill is.
Right.
And I think they look up to definitely women like yourself to see how you've competed without, again, you're in that, it's a strange game where it can look violent, but it can also look graceful. And then when they play it, they realize, wow, how did anybody do that? And I think they're beginning to recognize that being a student athlete, a female student athlete, is a huge, huge advantage to you throughout all of your life.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Now, we've talked about, your role, again, with seeing some diversity here and there, but you've also talked about revitalizing, trying to use lacrosse for that, places like Baltimore. What do you went to a place like McDonogh, and maybe you can describe that for people, because you mentioned it was somehow African-American woman suddenly going to bar mitzvahs and eating curry.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Things like that. And thinking the whole world was diverse in a place like Baltimore, which, in an old urban city, it definitely is not, I guess all blended for sure. But,
to me, it compared to some of the cities I've been,
yes.
Like I went to Charlottesville. That's not diverse. So to me, and I go to Atlanta and I go to LA, like I like Baltimore because it has a blend of, it's socioeconomically diverse, it's ethnically diverse, it's religiously diverse. Like, you go further south, you don't get as much religious diversity to me, and I think diversity of all kinds is important. So that's kind of why I've kind of pitched my tent permanently in the Mid-Atlantic, because this is my place. Yeah.
And what did when you were, again, at a boarding school, how big was McDonogh? How many kids were you with, roughly?
They're about, I think there's a little bit more than 100 in each grade, and they go from, I think they have kindergarten now, but they didn't have kindergarten when I went there. It was pre-K to 12, so 100 kids. So it's a little bit more than 1,200 kids.
So I think you described as being in a really beautiful bubble. And a lot of people would think, oh, boarding school, everybody looks the same. But it was a bubble of diversity that you had there.
To me,
yeah.
Yes. There'd be 6 black kids and
right.
20 Jewish kids. And we'd have Sikh kids and Hindu kids. And I know that not everybody had that experience. And when I went to UVA, I think that I met people who thought that,